The sphere of many eyes, the eye tyrant, the beholder. On any groundling world, a single beholder is the stuff of nightmares. Monstrous orbs of flesh and teeth and tentacles, vainglorious bringers of death and disintegrations. Each one a singular force capable of reducing an entire party of adventurers to little more than dust on the ground. Something to sweep up with the rubbish. It's a small blessing, then, that beholders are only ever alone, that they are driven by vanity to isolate themselves from their own kind. Or are they? There have been exceptional moments in groundling history when beholders have gathered in groups, despite the cruelty which drives them to destroy one another under typical circumstances. Most of these moments have been mere collaborations between the most reasonable beholders. Small groups called clusters, which come together to achieve some common goal or bask in some shared feature. These clusters never last. They always succumb in time to the beholder's all-consuming need to destroy and to dominate. Yet, on rare occasion, a beholder known as a hive mother appears, also called an ultimate tyrant by the beholders themselves. The hive mother possesses a unique ability which allows her to seize control over the minds of those beholders who resemble her most. A successful hive mother can use this ability to compel beholders into service by the dozens, or even the hundreds, if she can dream her own followers into existence. These rare and terrible groups have long been known as hives, and their collective power is more than enough to change the face of nations, if not worlds. Now, what would the groundlings do, I wonder, if they knew that out there in Wildspace, out there among the stars, these terrible hives are not the exception, but the rule. The beholder's ship is always a fearsome sight. A great concave shell lined with spherical indentations where hives of up to 40 beholders sit like terrible jewels in some strange inverted crown. These unsettling ships are called tyrants, and each one is unique in its shape and its purpose, a manifestation of the collective vision of the beholder hive that crews it and the hive mother who commands it. What makes these tyrants so fearsome is that they are more than ships. While aboard, the beholders who make up its hive are connected by a magic bond known as a beholder circuit. This magical circuit transfers the energy of the entire hive into the hive mother, whose central eye becomes the focal point for a supercharged version of one beholder eye beam. Charmed crews, disintegrated ship hulls, entire ships disabled by anti-magic beams. Each tyrant ship possesses only one such beam, but one is enough. The terrible power of a tyrant beam attack is that it can target an entire ship, rather than a single unfortunate person. What is especially remarkable is that the beholders achieve all of this power without the use of a spelljamming helm. Without the use of any helm, in fact. Among beholders, there is no creature more pathetic than the Orbus. These wretched creatures are pitiful things. Vulnerable orbs of pale flesh who reek of vinegar and bile. A central eye that is clouded and myopic. Eye stalks which have become withered and useless. Mindless brains without the will to act on their own. Their sole purpose for existence is to convert the collected energy of the beholders in a hive into the power they need to travel across Wildspace, acting as both the helmsman and the helm, the key to the great weapons of the tyrant ships, and utterly enslaved by the beholders commanding them. yet no one knows where they come from. No one but the beholders themselves. There is a possibility that the Orbus is nothing more than a unique breed of beholderkin, dreamed up or bred as a response to the particular needs Wildspace inflicts upon beholder kind. But there are also rumors that the Orbi were once true beholders themselves. It's thought by some that they are victims of their own kind, that the beholders sometimes reshape other beholders until only the wretched Orbus remains. And while that may sound cruel and arrogant to many, remember that the beholder is cruelty and arrogance given shape, which makes it as likely an origin as any, especially when we consider that the beholders of Wildspace are fighting an endless war against themselves. The reality is that a fleet of beholder tyrants could easily subjugate entire worlds with their terrifying weapons and absolute destructive potential. But they don't, and they probably never will, because each Tyrant-class ship is too busy chasing down and fighting all the other Tyrant-class ships in Wildspace. When two Tyrants meet in space, there is no attempt to parley or size up the enemy. The violence is spectacular and brutal, although these conflicts are not always fought by beholders alone. As with many other creatures who are seen as nothing more than monsters to be defeated on the ground, the beholders of Wildspace are more social. They engage in trade and diplomatic relations with other races, and sometimes they even employ mercenaries to help them in their battles. This endless warfare, which has consumed the lives of countless beholders and so many others, is known as the Beholder Civil War, and it has been fought for as long as there have been beholders to fight it. Many of the beholder ships in Wildspace fancy themselves nations, believing that their ability to disintegrate anyone who disagrees with them is all the sovereignty they need to justify their claim. But there were hives from distant and unknown worlds which could truly claim the name. Hives that numbered in the tens of thousands. Massive hives, like the now extinct Sazaur Nation. The Sazaur was a nation of 10,000 beholders, all bound together under the domination of a singular hive queen, a mutant example of their kind, who was a true giant by beholder standards. To say that this queen would be spectacularly powerful would be an understatement, and the Sazaur are known for exterminating all other beholders in their world during the time of her rule. But despite all the power backing this legendary monster, the Hive Queen of the Sazaur Nation eventually met her end at the hands of unknown assailants. What is known is that the death of the Sazaur Queen spelled the end of the Sazaur Nation and its fortunes, though not as one would expect. One would expect the Sazaur Nation to collapse in on itself without the dominating influence of the Queen, and thus succumb to the legendary infighting of the beholder race. Instead, the memory of the Sazaur Queen continued to dominate the will of the beholders, and the most powerful among them began searching for a way to restore the terrible glory of their queen to the world. Unfortunately for the Sazaur Nation, the way they found guaranteed their total and absolute extinction.